March 30th, 2024. Well, looks things have been looking up a little bit for the Trump campaign lately. First of all, and for Trump himself, I mean, one big thing that occurred, of course, is that he, um, he got a reduction in the bond he had to post in this so-called fraud case in New York, and the bond reduced to $175 million from 454 million, I think it was. So that's a major step ahead, and perhaps, and he was also given 10 more days to raise the money. So perhaps that becomes now possible. The other good thing that happened for him, of course, was his True Social uh, platform. The stock associated with that went public, and presumably will give him something like about $3 billion more in equity. However, it's restricted stock, so he can't sell it, I believe, for 6 months. And if you look at that from I guess Tuesday when it went public, that would be sometime in late September. So I guess before the election, he conceivably could sell some of it and use it to help fund his campaign. Although, I don't know if he wants to do that or not, but and he also has to consider the possibility that he might have to pay a fine. We can hope he wins this fraud case. You know, there's also the exorbitant judgment they rendered in the harassment case also, remember. So, and then also he on the legal front, he has filed a motion in the court in Georgia to to uh, uh, to drop the charges in the RICO case in Georgia. And of course, and they also made the motion otherwise, or to at least remove Fannie Willis from being the prosecutor. So, in which case, it's possible that if another prosecutor was picked, they might not choose to go ahead, depending on which prosecutor they got and what the political orientation of that prosecutor was. I think the case itself isn't a really strong legal case. It's more of a political hatchet job, like almost all this is. So those are kind of things that are going on in the positive side. Also, Jack Smith, the special prosecutor in the two federal cases, went to the Supreme Court asking for them to move up the date to review his immunity case, and the Supreme Court rejected that, which again kind of brings up the issue I raised earlier. It looks positive for Trump on that case of getting some advancement or some favorable ruling, because why is the Supreme Court even hearing the case if they are going to basically just rubber stamp what the appellate court ruled? In other words, if the decision was going to stand, and what the appellate court basically did was basically said that he doesn't have immunity in these the issues that were raised in the D.C. case about the January the 6th and all the things related to that. So it seems to me that if they weren't going to rule in a different way, you wouldn't need to even hear the case. And the fact that they've not been willing to move it up either would seem to suggest that there's 5 people in that direction, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they just have a tight docket and can't be bothered. You know how the Supreme Court can be. But it does seem like the other idea would be there'd be 4 justices that strongly want to review the case and put everybody on record that even if they're not going to win. That is conceivable, but I don't know. Maybe they think that the arguments themselves will change minds. I don't know. So but that gives you the idea of kind of what the lay of the land is there. So if you like these videos, please give me a like, and you can subscribe. Of course, we're always looking for more subscriptions. So, and I think that hopefully people realize that you get some kind of analysis here. I think that's they don't necessarily hear everywhere. Hopefully. So getting on with it, so that's kind of it. On the negative side, of course, he's got the case relating to the hush money payments in New York, and that's supposed to start. I think it's on April the 15th, I believe it is. And the judge in the case seems to be an ultra liberal judge, hardcore Democrat apparently. He already put some gag order on him, which it may look to me like Trump either evaded or at least violated even. So we'll see what happens on that. That case, it seems to me to be a really weakly structured case legally, and of course the actual charges themselves of falsifying records, which in itself I think is questionable whether it was falsified, because really it was what was really going on there was that, if you recall, that his attorney basically made the payments, and then an attorney was reimbursed as part of his retainer, and of course partly the reason to do that was obviously to keep it obscured. I mean, he did, but they've tried to turn this into every retainer payment was a falsified payment, and so forth. And so, and even if it was, that would only be a misdemeanor. But somehow they've got some kind of an argument that they're going to make that it's a felony. And if it's a misdemeanor, the statute of limitations would already have ended. So we'll see how that one plays out. That's on the other hand, we'll have a jury trial, and so if you get one solid Trump person on the jury, maybe the jury will hang, if nothing else. Hard to tell. I mean, the problem is that these juries are instructed to only look at certain facts and so forth, and if the judge is hostile, they can play that game. Well, all right, so that's kind of on the downside there. And so basically, I think things overall, though, are kind of looking up for Trump on this. We still haven't got a date, I don't think, for the Florida case. And I always look at these cases because basically, if it wasn't for this, he's leading in the polls, and it looks to me like he should do very good in the campaign, given how bad that Biden is doing. Of course, another thing to consider here is that we have RFK Jr. has now picked his VP candidate, an ultra leftist lady. So the idea that the Kennedy third party alternative is going to be seen as something attractive to conservatives, I think, is rapidly fading away. It's a real challenge to Biden, not to the conservatives. Now, if they'd have went with with somebody like they were considering one of the some athlete, I think a football quarterback from New York or something like that, that might have brought in more of a conservative bent, perhaps. But this lady is probably to the left of Biden. So the only thing is that he has some conspiracy theory viewpoints, about the assassination of his father and his uncle, and that leaves him at odds with the deep state, I think, in some ways, and he's also at odds with the vaccine people, as he was a vaccine critic even before the COVID vaccine became an issue. So but I think all in all, that tends to favor Trump by taking away potential Democrat votes to give people that can't stand Trump somebody to vote for other than Biden, and while Trump can then keep his core support and hopefully pull out a win somewhat similar to what he did in 2016. At least that's our hope on that one. And so anyhow, so that's kind of kind of where we're going on this. Other issues, I guess I kind of cover on the congressional front. The Congress is on a 2-week session or vacation, I guess you'd call it, over the Easter weekend, and they won't be back until the week after that. So a lot of things are still pending, including the issue about the Ukraine aid package. And right now there's been it looks like 191, I believe the number is, signatures on a discharge petition that the Democrats are pushing, with one Republican on there. That's the Ken Buck, who double-crossed us and resigned. Of course, in some ways, well, at any rate, and of course, so far Gallagher's not on it. So whatever his beef is, we'll see how that plays out. But they need to get 218 votes, I guess, to get the discharge petition through. And what's missing is I don't think any of the squad members, the anti-Israel crowd, the pro-Hamas crowd, what do you want to call them, they're not signing up because it has like $15 billion of aid to Israel in it. So the Democrats need to get Republicans to make that work. and so far only one person has signed up. And it is in question if somebody signs it and then resigns, no longer in Congress, when it would reach the theoretical 218 level, does that still count, or does that negate it that they've resigned? This I do not know. I guess we'll find out later on that one. But for the moment, that threat's still there, but maybe it's not growing that fast. We'll see. The other thing is, of course, that Speaker Johnson has his own ideas, but then again, Marjorie Taylor Greene has her own ideas, and she's threatening to make a motion to vacate the chair, and presumably, if this happens, there'll be 3 or 4 fools that will go along with it, plus all the Democrats, and then we'll be back into a null situation again. Hopefully that doesn't happen, and of course this gets into the whole issue of how to. He's got his own alternative aid bills, and some of them are involving things like the idea of making the financial aid, the stuff that would help employ government officials in Ukraine and so forth. That kind of money would just be a loan rather than a grant, and the grant would just be for the military. So remember that 20 billion of the military aid isn't really to go to Ukraine directly. It's actually to replenish the U.S. stocks for things we've already sent. So that leaves maybe about 20 billion of actual military items. So that's kind of how that goes. But this is kind of a touchy issue because you have that, then you have the Israeli issue, and so I don't know. And the problem is, even if they get this passed somehow, will the Senate just rubber stamp it, or what will they do with it? I mean, so that keeps the thing still in flux. So from the Ukraine's point of view, I think they prefer the discharge petition. That'd be the fastest and cleanest. From the let's say the people who are opposing aid to Ukraine, obviously the more it messes up, the better probably. So anyway, that's kind of the status of it, and that'll be back, I think, when they get back in session. I believe that'll be maybe on the 9th, I think it is, of April or something like that. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, that's kind of but these are kind of the major political issues that are playing out. In the meantime, in the wake of the attacks on Moscow, the massacre at the rock concert, it looks like Russia's and some attacks that destroyed or damaged. It looks like they didn't destroy, but they damaged some Russian ships in Sevastopol. The Russians have gone on a full-scale attack against the energy supplies of Ukraine. They're hitting their electric power plants, the generation stations. And the attack on the dam, they didn't go after the dam itself. They went after the generators. So far in the coal power plants and things of that sort, or I guess they're coal power, fossil fuel anyhow. I think they're being a little careful, hopefully, on the nuclear plants. I mean, we don't want to melt down here, folks. So anyhow, that's always a prevailing possibility in a conflict with nuclear power plants in the middle of a war zone with a lot of bombing going on. But anyway, so that's kind of the way, that's been the latest trend in that conflict. So we'll have to see what happens next. I don't want to get too much in depth on that, but just make those few comments. So I'll be wrapping this up for now. As always, of course, they'll be posted both on YouTube and on Rumble, and the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below. And I, of course, have been posting fairly actively on X lately, and I've been gaining some followers there. So to anybody that came in through this, I appreciate it. So until next time.